Hey everyone, and welcome to this month's Radio Masters Sales Series webinar, Higher Ground, Selling Radio for Recession Recruitment, sponsored by Marketron. I'm Radio Inc. online editor Cameron Coates, and you don't need me to tell you this. The economic situation is unstable, and radio's clients are feeling the pressure, which means so are we. The word recession gets thrown around a lot, and while we can't predict the future, we can prepare for it. And that's why I'm excited to introduce today's guest. Joining us today is Stonick Recruitment President Chris Stonick. For over 30 years, Chris has spent more than 150 days a year on the road, helping businesses recruit and retain talent through radio. He's a featured columnist for Radio Inc. His works also appeared in HR Magazine. He's an accredited speaker with the Society for Human Resource Management. Was a crowd favorite at the RAB's annual conventions. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding, Cameron. Thanks for having me here, brother.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you here. And of course, this is a very hot topic and one that you've covered pretty in depth since the beginning of the year. And well before that in your Radio Inc. column, let's just get right down to it because what's the importance of effectively recruiting during an economic downturn, and how does that relate to radio?
Yeah, the biggest thing I think people need to do in this situation, when there is an actual recession, everything kind of shrinks down, right? Advertising budgets go away in many cases. And initially I thought, well, in a recession, I would be out of a job because no one's hiring anymore. And in the 37 years I've done this, Cameron, I've heard the word recession been thrown around so many times. In the 37 years, there's only actually been 4 recessions. That's it. There's a recession of 1991 that occurred right after I started my business, which I thought was going to crush me, but which did not. There was a recession of 2001. There was the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, and there was a recession in 2020. I don't know if you've heard of this COVID thing that apparently occurred. So there's really only been 3 economic downturns in a recession in 37 years. And if this is supposed to be a recession, it's doing a really bad job of being a recession. This last month, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. added 177,000 jobs again last month. So, the biggest thing that I would say first, turn off the news. Don't listen to the news anymore. And I'm sorry if you work for a news station, but we fall into our own traps so often, and we have to get past that. The interesting thing is there have been 4 recessions while I was in business, and I'm still in business. And in some of my most prosperous times were actually during recessions, and it was tremendous. The one that I learned the most from was the Great Recession. 2007, 2009. And I talked to companies that were hiring. And there's still a lot of companies that hire during a recession. You just have to be mindful. So you just can't go scattershot when you're looking for companies. You want to be able to pinpoint who is hiring. And that's brought out in so many different publications that you can follow through on that. And so when I talk to these companies and ask them, what is the difference between 2007 in a recession and 2003 when the world was looking fantastic? And they said the only difference they saw time and time again was that they were seeing more bad applicants during a recession. And I thought that kind of blew me away because I thought it would be the opposite, right? I thought, well, man, there must be so many great people out there that, holy cow, it must be so easy to recruit right now. And what I found was, and this happens all over the time, anytime the word recession is thrown out there, what do you hear? You hear companies are laying off. Well, guess who? When you're gonna, Cameron, if you own Cameron Enterprises and you have 500 employees and 50 of them are bad and 450 of them are unbelievable, who are you going to let go of?
I'm probably going to tap into that 50.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what every company did during the recession. Companies use the word recession as a way to clean house. They get rid of people that they've wanted to get rid of for a long time. And all of a sudden they can flush and they can clean out people. And all I have to say is, oh man, sorry, dude, it's the recession. It's not you, it's the recession. And so companies do this again and again and again. So who is hiring right now? Well, let's talk about the areas. And one of the companies I follow up quite a bit is Robert Half Staffing, and they're based out of San Francisco. And according to Robert Half, right now, the hot areas that are technology and IT, business, business professional services, financial services, manufacturing, and renewable energy. You know, there's so much talk about bringing manufacturing back to the United States right now. If you follow the American Manufacturing Association, the U.S. is short 500,000 workers right now in manufacturing. Now, I don't know where they're going to get all these people, because the reality is the U.S. is out of workers right now. That's the reality. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, right now, the U.S. is short 1.1 million workers. Bloomberg states within the next 8 years, that shortage will be 6 million people. And so that kind of brings me to this next step. And that is, it's got to be more about retention than it is just about recruiting. And so, but I do want to cover some areas that are hiring right now as well that were not listed by the staffing agency, and that we're finding great success with right now. And one of those is military. Anytime a Republican president is seated, generally there's more money focused and funneled to military. And the great thing is, a lot of that becomes local recruiting budgets for the local military staffers. And so that is very different than when a Democrat is in house. And so this is a great time to go talk to every military officer you have, the office that's recruiting in your area. Another area that I'm a huge fan of, that we've been going after for years, having great success, and that is law enforcement. You know, Cameron, anytime you hear a law enforcement story on any media outlet, is that normally good news or bad news? Well, almost every time it's bad news, right? You don't hear the great stories that occur in law enforcement. So what we have done, so I hope you guys steal my phrases. And one of the phrases, that I like to talk about when I talk to a police chief is to say, the great thing about these radio recruiting ads is that you are controlling the narrative. You control the narrative. You get to tell all your good stories, all the wonderful things that you are doing for your community, what have you. The other aspect that's really important, if you have that law enforcement agency that's willing to recruit with you, and that is to get the chief to cut their own ads, right? Get he or she to cut their own ads, because it adds that personal touch now. Another area that's massively understaffed, and it ain't going to get no better, and that's correctional facilities. All these correctional facilities. I worked in South Dakota with the statewide correctional facility, the gentleman that ran the whole state. And he said, Chris, we're so short of correctional officers, COs right now, that we are locking our inmates and not allowing them to leave their cells for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Well, they're already not real happy where they're at this point. And now you're not letting them leave their area, their small little area, for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And he said, so inmate morale is at an all-time low. And he said, it's just killing us. But he said, we don't have a choice, because we are so understaffed. It's a fear for our COs to be in there with so many inmates and so few COs. And so what we did was we got one commercial approved. It ran that first week, and they did not get any COs to apply. So we added a second ad into the rotation. Nobody. We added a third ad in the third week. Nobody. The fourth week, they hired 8 COs, and they've run continually ever since. So it's so important to realize that when somebody says, can you write me a great recruiting ad? I generally say no. And they're like, well, isn't that what you do? Yeah, I've written over 70,000 recruiting commercials, but what I tell companies is, I'd rather write you great recruiting commercials not a commercial, because not everyone responds to one ad or one type of ad. Not everybody likes vanilla. That's why there's a whole bunch of different ice creams out there. Same thing goes with recruiting. You have to continually engage the client. And, some of the worst mistakes that are made is when a client signs on for an 8-week run with you, and you accept it, and you run that same ad all 8 weeks. And at the end of the 8 weeks, the client says to you, well, that didn't work. Horrible, right? Absolutely horrible. But if you are engaging with that client every week that they are running, okay, it didn't work week 1, put a second ad in, then a third ad, then a fourth ad. What were we showing the client? We showed the client that we cared. We showed the client that we had their best interest in mind and not just there to make a sale. And so make sure that you're constantly touching base with these people. You have a chance to form a great rapport with these recruiters, with these HR directors and business owners that they don't get with LinkedIn and Monster and Career Builder and everything else, because now there's a personal touch. Now you have a chance to, the very first time you shake their hand, you've shaken it one more time than Indeed ever has. And Indeed's a very powerful company, but they don't have that personal ability to get in there like radio people do, right? And form that rapport. That is so very, very important. Well, we had a client in Anchorage, Alaska, and it was a community hospital. And I'll give you the short version, but the biggest client that they ever had on the air was $7,000 a month, the radio station. The very first time they got this hospital to run, they were spending $7,000 a month. And we were thrilled. We were like, man, biggest client on the radio. We're all fired up. And the rep that I worked with was very aggressive, but very bright and very knowledgeable about the client. Within a year and a half, they would only sign 3-month contracts, which initially annoyed the crap out of me because they were so happy with the results. She got them to go from spending, and it sounds fanciful, but it's true. She got them to go from spending $7,000 a month to the final contract was $53,000 a month. She said, I know how much money this hospital has, and I know how much they need us. And we've just had such great results. But the thing that was the most amazing to me of all was that we were the number 3 radio group in the marketplace. The other radio stations had bigger deals, right? They had bigger audiences and everything else. But those other 2 radio groups were calling that client consistently, right? Going, spread the money around, come on. And what the CEO and CFO told the other radio groups was, this group brought me this idea. They're getting me great results. I'll never spend my money anywhere else. Yeah,
if it's working, that's the main objective right there.
I don't think it's the salespeople in radio. I don't think we spend enough time forming the rapport. Getting that bond with these people, so they won't spend their money anywhere else. They're not going to say, "Well, this is working great, so now I'm going to give it to other people." Form that rapport with these people. Form that unbreakable bond, and you'll put yourself in a great position. One of the things,
Chris, let me jump in here for a second to say that we're going to have some Q&A at the end. So if you have some questions, make sure and drop those in the chat here, and we will get to as many of those as we can. But I want to make sure we get to everything here. You mentioned retention. Obviously, if Cameron Enterprises has 450 standout employees, I want to make sure we keep those on board. When we're talking about retention as a part of recruitment selling, what should radio sellers know there?
Yeah, that's where I've really made my mark in this deal. It's retention. 30-some years ago, I run across a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Sullivan, who's one of the gurus in the recruiting world. And at the time, John said, this is a brutal time to recruit. He said, you got to think of new strategies and techniques. But the thing he said next just perked me up like I'd never been, just like somebody just slapped me. And he said, the companies in America that win are the ones that re-recruit their people on a monthly basis. And that phrase to me was poetry. We re-recruit our people. We reignite our people. We re-motivate our people. If you look at any turnover survey that's been done in the last 30 years, one of the top reasons why people leave a company is not pay. Pay normally ranks number 3 to number 8 on the list of why I left my last company. But in the top 2, almost every survey, I felt under-recognized, I felt underappreciated. If you, as a company owner, as an HR professional, know that one of the biggest reasons people leave a job is because they feel under-recognized and underappreciated, that is a fixable situation. And that's what we do in the radio ads that we put together. In the same ads that we are recruiting, we're also recognizing personnel at the company. It could be on work anniversaries, it could be on promotions, it could be on anything, but it's consistent. That's the key. So, this kind of ties into 2 topics I really wanted to talk about, Cameron, and that is selling retention and selling long-term. One of the biggest mistakes radio salespeople do is they go in and sell a client a 2 or 3 week schedule and they hope it works, or they sell them a job fair, schedule, and they hope it works. With job fairs, I hate job fairs. I hate job fairs because in 2 to 3 hours, you are either a hero or a zero in 2 to 3 hours. Well, God bless America. I don't want to stick my neck out that far. I want to talk to these companies about an ongoing marketing, recruitment, and retention plan. And that's what we do. On the very first time I meet with any client in America, I don't care what kind of client it is, I'm talking to them about recruitment and retention. And at all the seminars I do around the country, the feedback I get from the attendees, the HR people, the business owners is, the recruitment thing was really cool, but you know what I really loved? The retention. And you know what they just told me? Hey, Chris, you know what? I like the idea of buying a few weeks, but I'd rather buy an annual from you. Okay, I'm okay with that. Because when they are honed in on retention, and a phrase I came up with 30 years ago was, if you don't retain, you will retrain. Those 2 words are 1 letter apart, but they're the opposite ends of the world, right? They're the opposite ends of the world. It is so much easier in America to retain a great worker than it is to find a great worker. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I just looked this up right before we went on air here. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average tenure of an American worker is 3.9 years. Well, in the first few years, you're really just kind of getting good at your job. Think about all you sellers that are out there right now, all you managers that are out there right now. The first year or so, you're just kind of getting to know the lay of the land. And year 2, year 3, now you're starting to build. If every company in America is losing people between 3 and 4 years, they're losing people as they're just getting good for them. So what are they losing? They're losing productivity. They're losing profitability. Turnover costs money, a lot of money. And the great news is right now in America, LinkedIn just did a survey. 54% of Americans said they would like to switch jobs this year. 54%. So that means there's going to be a lot of really good people with their eyes wide open right now. And the radio ads are able to attract these great people. I've asked every company in America a real simple question when I first meet them. And that is, if you had a choice, would you prefer to talk to candidates who are currently employed or those who are unemployed? Well, guess how many clients have ever said, I'm looking for unemployed people? Nobody. Every single person I've ever talked to has said, if I had a choice, I would prefer to talk to people that are working, doing a good job, a good track record, people that are going to make my company a better company. Well, what does radio allow you to do? Radio allows you to attack the people that are working right now, not the people that are just out there looking. No, don't get me wrong. There's some good people that are looking out there as well, but the radio has this ability to talk to the people. So the phrase that's really important to know in the industry is the passive job seeker. If you say, would you rather be talking to the passive job seeker or active job seeker? Then they get it. They'll be like, well, man, of course I'd rather be talking to the passive job seeker. So another phrase I say all the time is radio is a pipeline to the passive job seeker. We have like 350 million listeners in America. Not one person wakes up in the morning and says, hey, Cameron, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to listen to the radio to find a new job. Hey, Cameron, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to listen to radio to see if there's a clinical research study happening. Hey, Cameron, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to listen to radio today because I want to find a school that I can attend. Nobody listens to radio for those reasons. So another phrase I use all the time is, please steal this one as well. In radio, the job becomes the seeker. The job becomes the seeker. The person doesn't have to find the job finds them. And well over half the people that apply and hear about these jobs never hear the commercial themselves. It's a friend that hears the ad. It's a relative, a neighbor, a parent, a coworker. Somebody else hears that. It's social networking at its very, very finest. And, digital has its place here, but it's really the backup, to help out here, because digital can't help you motivate people. Digital can't improve productivity. Digital can't lower turnover and stuff like that. It can help you. It can help the hiring, absolutely, but it can't help in all these other aspects. And to me, it's about selling the entire program of everything radio can do. And that is what is most important. And that's what's most exciting to me. And like I said, when I talk to the companies, when I give these speeches all over the country, the thing I hear again and again and again is, I love the retention aspect. That is what gets me fired up, because again, they've told me just then that they are interested in a long-term situation, not just a short-term marriage and I'm out the door, in for one date and bye. It's this, they're looking for a long-term marriage, and that's what I'm looking for as well. And I'll leave on this one last point here, then we can go. You can take it any direction you want to, but we talked about long-term sales versus short-term sales. And I had 2 radio markets in Pennsylvania that were struggling. I mean, they were really struggling big time, and they were literally getting like $1,000, $2,000 a month in recruitment. And all of a sudden, within a 6-month period of time, both markets were doing $30,000 plus a month. And so I talked to the GM, and I said, what have you done that's different? And she said, we listened to you. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, we now don't accept any recruitment orders unless a client is willing to run at least 3 months with us. And she said, since we've done that, since we've instituted that policy, she said, we rarely lose a client. They're getting the results they're looking for. They've given us the time to be successful. She said, now, does that mean we haven't lost any business? We absolutely have. But the business we've lost is probably businesses that would have said radio doesn't work. So we're okay with losing that, because what we've gained is immeasurable.
Chris, that's fantastic. And, 3 of the big takeaways for me from this has been that manufacturing, big vertical to reach out to right now, incorporating multiple spots, touching base with your clients every week throughout the process and seeing what works and what doesn't until you hit that sweet spot. And then radio helps reach the passive job seeker. I love that last one there. So
yeah, and I'll tell you, and the other area that's real big, that's huge, and it's been the number 1 most difficult position to recruit in America, and that is skilled labor, skilled tradespeople. It's been number 1 most difficult according to Manpower, year after year after year, and that's not going to change. People, unfortunately, seem to be pushed into college. And I went to college. I loved college. I had a great time. But man, there's an awful lot of people out there that aren't college material. That's not where they want to be. And man, you can have a huge opportunity for a great career in skilled trades. And so it's an area that is absolutely in need all over the country. So yeah, manufacturing, but man, skilled tradespeople is a massive target area. So, HVAC, carpenters, electricians, all that stuff, unions, anything like that are all tremendous targets to go after as well, Cameron.
So we'll jump to a little bit of Q&A here. I'm going to invoke moderator's privilege and throw in a question that's kind of been on my mind ever since you wrote about it a few weeks back, and that is around AI. Maybe not in the way that most people have been viewing AI. It's in the way that AI allows more people than ever to apply to more positions than ever. Some people use ChatGPT to just spit out as many resumes and applications they can, qualified or not. You wrote about even some fake candidates and some bad actors out there that are using AI to nefarious ends, we'll say. But how does this kind of help people dodge the online AI candidates?
Yeah, that's it. To me, that was so interesting when I read this. It kind of blew me away. They were saying within a few years, 1 out of every 4 remote workers applying for a job will be AI, will be a fake person. And so many of these companies are hiring remote workers all over the world. And the amazing thing about these AI actors is they look great. Their resumes look phenomenal. The person, they're animated. There's a people. They look like a person. And the only reason some of these companies have figured it out is they're seeing some glitches in the background, right? They're noticing some things that aren't quite right, but probably AI will probably fix that. And so it's a frightening thing. And so initially I thought, well, they're just having some fun. Somebody's out there, it's probably a 13-year-old kid, figures something out and just doing this, jacking around with companies out there. But the concern is that some of these AI actors remote will get hired. And you're saying, well, why is that a bad thing? Well, the problem is once they get hired, what these companies are fearing is they will get into all their knowledge bank. They will take over their system. They will demand ransom, and they will expose they'll have all the company secrets and everything else to sell to anybody, or these companies are going to have to pay massive ransoms out there. So it is a very real, very frightening situation. The great thing about radio, again, you're hiring locally, right? You're hiring somebody you can trust. You'll meet with them in person. And so you don't have that scenario. So that, again, I think that's a big benefit to radio, to be able to have that personal touch once again to get the people that they're looking for.
Now, Chris, I think that's just about it. Honestly, as I say, we've
covered
a lot of ground in 30 minutes. As I say, I've been checking the clock here. But yes, thanks so much for your insights. Of course, you can get those at radioinc.com. You've got a great backlog of content there. You can go under the columnist section, scroll down, and Chris is there under sales. Of course, also twice a month in our daily headlines email. Where's a good place to find you on socials or find out more about what you do?
Sure. You can go to just email me if you like. If you have any questions, you can email me at chris.stonick, STONICK @gmail.com. And I will absolutely try to help you out if I possibly can. You can go to stonicrecruitmentinc.com as well. So if that is something you'd like to do, that'd be great. But this is something I've made 37 years. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this, to be very honest with you. It's been absolutely phenomenal. I love the industry. I love radio. It's been nothing but good to me. And I think if we're a little smarter about doing this, we can continue to make enormous money. I think one of the things I think we have to really do is recenter on radio and not just digital. I think we're messing up there, but that's just personal opinion.
Well, good mix of both suits everybody in that situation. Yep. So, Chris, thank you so much. And of course, big thank you to Marketron for sponsoring this session of the Radio Masters Sales Series. We've got a huge summer ahead, got a great lineup. Make sure you subscribe to Radio Inc's daily headlines email for the latest info. We don't want you to miss a single session. Thanks so much for attending today. We'll see you next month.